Yeah, I mean, though actually Card is Canadian and Hideo Imbens is Dutch.
Oh, okay.
So I understand that our Honorable Vice Chancellor's son also is in MIT. Am I right, sir?
Yeah, my son is doing PhD in Mechanical Engineering Department in MIT.
Okay. That's great.
Live on YouTube.
And my elder one has studied in Berkeley.
So they're all, those are the universities which got the Nobel Prize today.
Yeah.
MIT, Berkeley.
Yes. My both sons will be very happy to know.
It's 6:30, shall we begin?
Sorry?
It's 6:30 here, so shall we begin?
Yeah. Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. At the beginning of the program, I request everyone to rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
So thank you everyone. I'm actually a bit nervous but very excited for this program. Let me begin by welcoming our guest on behalf of Dr. Babasa Ambedkar International Research Center, Professor Abhijeet Banerjee, who is the winner of the Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences for the year 2019, along with Esther Duflo and Michael Kreml. It's an honor to have him for the inaugural of the MA programs that we introduced recently. It was initially a very modest beginning, but the response for these two programs has been very noteworthy. This Chancellor Sir Professor Suhas Pednekar of our university, who will be chairing this session. This center, which was started in 2005-06 as a chair in Ambedkar Thought by UGC, is named after Dr. Babasa Ambedkar, who is known to all of us for his contributions in various fields. But he was basically an economist and a visionary whose contribution changed lives of millions of people in India, and who has also contributed to different fields of knowledge immensely. What would be more appropriate to have an economist whose work in the area of development economics is considered to be a visionary for his experimental approach to alleviation of poverty. It is an honor to have you, sir. Now, to begin with, I request Professor Kharat, Dean Humanities, to introduce Professor Banerjee briefly. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Manisha, and good evening, everyone. Today's chairperson, respectable Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Suhas Pednekar, sir, Chief Guest, Professor Abhijeet Banerjee, and all the colleagues from the University of Mumbai as well as various other universities across India. Welcome once again. Let me introduce the University of Mumbai historically played a very significant role in thinking and molding the teaching and research in Indian economic and social development since almost second half of the 19th century. Having Nobel laureate Professor Abhijeet Banerjee is a befitting tribute to the University of Mumbai and to the scholars and thinkers who have dedicated their life and the academics to the university and to the nation. So it's like a Professor Banerjee, who's a Nobel laureate, is a repute. He's with us today. So with this, I take this opportunity to introduce formally Professor Abhijeet Banerjee. Professor Abhijeet Banerjee, who is a BSc from the University of Calcutta, Masters in the Economics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, doctorate from Harvard University. He is also a member of National Academy of Sciences since 2020. More than that, he is the author of the Good Economics for Hard Times, for which he received the Nobel laureate. Then at the same time, he was associated with one of the important and the principal universities of USA, like Princeton University, Harvard University, and since 1993, he's being associated with the MIT USA, and he is now holding the Ford Foundation Professor, International Professor of Economics. With this brief introduction, I welcome Professor Abhijeet Banerjee to share his ideas and thoughts, which he has already shared with his research work for bettering the life of the people in general and to those who are from the margins in particular. So welcome once again, Professor Abhijeet Banerjee, sir. The floor is yours. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on this this expansion of the Dr. Babasa Ambedkar International Research Center with the master's program. I think congratulations for that. I think it's as one of the many millions of admirers of Dr. Ambedkar, I feel that this is the least we can do to honor the fact that not only was he a great leader and a great national figure, he was also a prominent researcher and a thinker. He was one of the first Indians to get 2 PhDs in economics, one from the London School of Economics in 1921, and one later from his alma mater, Columbia University, honoris causa. He's perhaps less known is that he was actually an active economist for a significant part of his career and engaged in debates with, for example, John Maynard Keynes on the issue of monetary policy for India. He argued against Keynes's views on India going on a convertible gold standard. So I think that in some ways it's an honor for me to be able to speak in his honor, and I thought I'd start with something that in our latest book, Good Economics for Hard Times, we quoted him, and I want to start with that quote, and then maybe have some thoughts on what that quote, the relevance of the quote today, and what maybe we might be missing. So I think most of you know this quote. It was from, in a sense, a kind of an implicit debate with Gandhi, on who Gandhi and many others who were in favor of kind of returning to the village, quote unquote. And Ambedkar wrote, "What is the village but a sink of localism, a den of ignorance, narrow-mindedness, and communalism?" This is a quote. This is a much quoted line, and I think it was very much a part of Ambedkar's vision for a modernized India. That it would be an India where there would be, instead of people living in close communities, they will be in the open light of urban modern India. That was very much his vision. He thought that by bringing people together, by bringing diversity, bringing education, bringing economic progress, there will be social progress as well. And our prejudices will be mitigated by that. And I think that's been a central hypothesis of all social sciences, at least from that time, that in some ways that we will get a very transformative influence from the process of economic progress, and mostly through urbanization and opening up of the country and the society. And I think this is a vision that I think many have shared. It's one of the core visions of the sort of the modernization theories of in economics and political science and sociology, and one that in some ways we now feel has been challenged. I want to go back to what we actually know. So I think what I would say is known. I mean, at the broadest level, the work that was recognized by today's Nobel Prize in Economics, David Card's work on migration inspired a whole body of work on natural experiments on migration. And there's an extensive body of work showing that indeed people who are even not by choice forced to migrate to cities end up in different places, better educated, more connected to the modern economy, more economically prosperous. And there's research on this from many countries in the world, and I mean, I think something like that also is happening in India. And with that, I think if you look at the structure of what Ambedkar was particularly concerned about, of sort of various forms of parochialism and narrow-mindedness, I think it's very, very clear that in a country like the US, in France, in Germany, growing cities are also the centers of liberalism. They are the places where people are open, people are tolerant, people are learning from new ideas. And if you look at where the support for kind of revanchist programs in the US are, where people are trying to hold on to unrealistically to a past, and as a result, often holding on to prejudice and even racist views of society. I think those tend to be in less urban and more less fast-growing areas. So there's something consistent with the Ambedkar hypothesis in that. I think in India we don't see as much of that, and that's sort of what I wanted to spend my few minutes talking about. I don't see quite the same pattern. We see a lot of perhaps the expressions of prejudice in cities. There was a recent news story about how in Moradabad, some Muslims were expelled from a neighborhood because it was a Brahmin neighborhood. How could they live there? So I do think that we have not seen the same opening up in society, in some, at least not quite as much as he might have expected, as much as Dr. Ambedkar might have expected. We have seen lots of progress. I think it's hard to deny the extent to which India has progressed in the last 75 years or so. You see, I mean, the extent to which people who were entirely excluded from the education system, people like Dr. Ambedkar, who were from the lower strata of the caste system, are now much more able to access the education system and have accessed it. And you see many more of their brilliant people coming out of backgrounds that 100 years ago, unless you were exceptional like Dr. Ambedkar, you would have never escaped from. However, I think there are reasons to be concerned, because I do see also a rise of a kind of an anti liberal movement in India. You see many instances of that. And I was going to speculate briefly about, what are the sources of the of that. One of them, I think, is the education system. I think the education system, partly there are attempts to place communal messages in the education system, but I think that's the small part of it. The big part of it, I think it has two pieces. One is, I think the education system is fundamentally technocratic. That's why I think it's very important to have a center like yours, which is in some ways deeply embedded in the social sciences. I think technocratic educations have their value, but I think when we tell people that, look, what you're doing is objective and there's no connection to society, we mislead them. And we stop them from asking questions that they should be asking. Education fundamentally needs to be about asking questions. And I think we have failed, we've often prioritized technical skills, and as a result, created half-educated people. And I think that's one of the problems we are facing, is that people haven't been exposed to the, while they've been educated, they have often failed to be exposed to the broader consequences of an education. A second thing, I think, is that a third thing is our education system is often so elite focused that, and this is something we've written about in extensively, that the entire system is unresponsive to where the students are. If the students are unable to follow the class, we know that from the work of, for example, from the work of Pratham, that upwards 50% of students in a class may be 2 or 3 years behind the class curriculum, but we keep teaching the curriculum. What that means is that a lot of people finish education without actually grasping the education. They finish it, they get to the exam, they somehow cram, they somehow manage. But because we don't invest in their deep skill building, we often end up with a situation where the people who are educated have only a very insecure hold on their education. They don't necessarily feel on top of what they've learned, and that insecure hold means you don't feel comfortable asking questions. I think the fundamental emphasis on learning what you've learned well, and to be placed in a position to be asking questions, is critical. The second thing, I think, where India needs to do something different is in the urban infrastructure. I think there is evidence in a number of cities that there is segmentation, that there is segregation of the population, partly by income. It is increasing segregation. You don't see people who are low income, and therefore you can make up stories about them. You don't see people who are from a different religion. You can make up stories about them. And I think I think there's evidence, for example, from Singapore, which enforces a certain amount of social mixing in their housing colonies, that when you do that, you get people to have less intolerant views. When you see people, this is what's called the contact hypothesis. I think this, but I also think that our infrastructure is often an infrastructure of being inward looking. We have housing colonies, gated colonies. We invest less in public spaces, where public spaces, I don't mean expensive malls where rich people can go, but in public spaces where public discussion, public art, public science, public social science get discussed. I think we don't create enough institutions where, in some ways, talks like the one I'm trying to give happen and then other people react. I think we create too little of that kind of public space. I think that public space is critical to creating harmonious societies of the kind Dr. Ambedkar envisioned. Finally, I think we have often, I think we haven't had enough public conversations in general in the media about the nature of nationalism. I think when people question the nation, we are often shut down. And I think it's very important, even when we disagree, even I often disagree with people who have very negative views of India. But when I disagree, I want people to be able to disagree with me. And I think it's very important that we create a spirit of public conversation that based on what I think in today's Indian Express, I think Pranab Bardhan has a beautiful piece which calls it civic nationalism, a form of nationalism which values the fact that we value a civic society, a civil society, a society of engagement. And I think Dr. Ambedkar would have been very much with that view. If he had been alive, he would have been emphasized. His entire contribution to constitutional thinking was always based on the idea of openness and tolerance and being inclusive and trying to allow people to be in the same space in civic ways. And I think that I think that these are the reasons why I think despite I think much urbanization and much economic progress, maybe his full vision or Dr. Ambedkar's full vision has not yet been realized. With that, let me return it to the chair. Thank you. And congratulations again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those insightful thoughts, especially on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's relevance in today's time, that is contemporary times, and also your emphasis on inclusiveness, tolerance, and having harmonious society. Now, I request Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to give his presidential remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manisha. Honorable Abhijeet Banerjee, Nobel Laureate. In fact, we are very fortunate to have you with us to address, and it's a matter of pride. All my distinguished participants in this particular lecture, which organized by Dr. Babasaheb International Research Center, established by University of Mumbai. Bharat Ratna Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, according to me, is not just an individual or a person, but he was the institute. And his early career, he was more known as economist and has made huge contributions in economics, especially in agricultural holdings, public finance, industrializations, water policy, which are considered very, very important. In the later stage, we all know Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar devoted more of his time in politics and especially in social changes and reforms. However, all his speeches and writings, you will find that his understanding and engagement with economics or economic issues were highly reflected. We all know that he is considered to be a champion of social justice and tried to address the issue of social inequalities by way of making constitutional provisions for the deprived sections and introducing affirmative actions and social protections for marginalized sections. We at University of Mumbai are very happy to pay our tribute. We have established Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar International Research Center. Idea is to take his understanding to the next generation. And in this regard, I'm very happy that this center has introduced two promising master's programs, MA in Development Studies and MA in Ambedkar Studies at University of Mumbai. And the center has vision of inclusive education with excellence. In fact, we also intend to introduce two more postgraduate programs very soon. And one of the programs will be MA in Social Policy. Looking at this noteworthy and path-breaking work of today's scholar and Nobel laureate Professor Banerjee in the area of economic development and economic theory and development interventions and social policy for poverty reduction, I'm very confident that his lecture and his thoughts, in fact, gave us an insight as what we need to do for further development of our own country and for further growth, especially in the higher education system. I'm very happy, Professor Banerjee, that you could spend some time with us. And I'm very confident that Dr. Manisha will take this center to new heights by taking up various activities and also explore the possibilities of collaborations, not just the institutions within the country, but institutions outside the country, and to make this center more meaningful at the international map in terms of the contributions made by Bharat Ratna Dr. Babasa Ambedkar. So thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for those encouraging words. Actually, everybody must be feeling that the program is getting over so quickly. But as we have limited time, let me do the pleasant job of expressing thank you. That is my words of gratitude. We have been feeling overwhelmed since we got consent from Professor Banerjee. So thank you, sir. Heartfelt thank you from all of us, our students as well as faculty in the Mumbai University for giving your insights on different areas. And thank you, Professor Suhas Pednekar, sir, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, for his unconditional support and his presidential remarks. I won't thank enough Professor Kharat because he's the one who took initiative and all the efforts for contacting Professor Banerjee and getting his consent. I also thank Mary, who has done all this coordination for us. And my heartfelt thanks to UCC, who gave us this technical support, and it has been wonderful. And we have a big audience, almost 250 plus people joined this lecture. So I thank you everyone, and we end at this. But with a request that Professor Banerjee in future will give us more time and we can have more interaction with faculty and students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Banerjee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.